Hi, and welcome to Such Talk. I'm Brandon Kutzler.
I'm Connor Johnson.
And I'm Miguel Otarola.
Today, we're going to be discussing the best music of the year and our favorite albums.
Why don't we start with some of your stuff today, Brandon?
All right, let's do it. All right, first I wanted to talk about what I believe is one of the best albums of the year, Yeezus. And with this album, Kanye West made a real 180 in terms of his sound, moved away from the pop sound of My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, Graduation, 808s, and his other previous albums, and made something that was really controversial and provocative to most listeners out there. It was a very abrasive, distorted, noisy, angry album. But, in a lot of ways, it is not really the album that people think it is. We like to think that Kanye West has sort of been consumed by his ego. But in a lot of ways, Yeezus is the first album by Kanye West that's more about his own personal failings than it is about his personal success. Another one of the great albums of this year is Random Access Memories by Daft Punk. Another unexpected choice in terms of sound, but not as angry or abrasive as Yeezus. Instead, Random Access Memories was sort of expected to be a big EDM rave-up album, and instead it turned out to be sort of a revivalist retro disco album with a lot of sounds picked out from the 70s, and ultimately it's a very successful album, a very nostalgic album that really harkens back to a musical past that's harder to find nowadays.
Great pick on the Random Access Memories. It took me a while to get into that album because it was, completely unexpected from anything that I thought they were going to do. But once I started listening to the songs, I really realized that it's one of the best produced and the best executed albums of the entire year.
Completely agree with that. Huge fan of the Yeezus pick, Brandon. I understand you went to the Yeezus concert in Las Vegas. How was that?
I did. That was right before he had to delay some shows, and I have to say it was excellent. If anyone's thinking about going out and seeing it, great production values and fantastic live experience.
I'm going to commend that as well, considering that I also went with him. So.
He did. And if Kim K's there, all the better.
So Connor, how about we go into your picks, dude?
Sounds like a plan. Thanks for that, Miguel. First off, I want to talk about the album released called The Gifted by one of my personal favorite artists, Wale. I really like The Gifted, even though some people don't. More so because there's 5 or 6 songs that really, really take Wale back to his roots of kind of soulful rap, which is kind of a light melody in the background as opposed to some of the more trap music stuff that he's been making with Rick Ross. And there was one song that was really heavy that I really like called Clappers. Let you figure what that one's about. And but a lot of the time, you could toss away some of the tracks in the middle, but towards the beginning and then towards the end, I really like the outro he did and the cameo by Jerry Seinfeld, classic. Another album I want to talk about is Born Sinner by J. Cole. Huge J. Cole fan dating back to his earlier work. What I thought personally was one of the coolest things to come out of this album was his song called Let Nas Down. Nas kind of picked that up and remixed it into Made Nas Proud without telling J. Cole, and then just kind of watching that whole series of events unfold both on Twitter and then hearing the song itself, which is fantastic by Nas. Just really cool that it all came out of there. I was also a huge fan of the single Land of the Snakes, talking about how it's kind of hard to trust people when you're rich and famous. And also I really like the song Illuminati, which sampled Juicy by the Notorious B.I.G.
Yeah, great pick on the J. Cole. I'm starting to get into that album a little bit more. I know I like a lot of the songs that came out for the radio. That one with Miguel, that's really good. And Crooked Smile is also one of my favorites. But I still haven't listened to any of the other tracks as much, and I'm starting to get into it. You played me a lot of the stuff, so...
Yeah, Born Sinner, not as much, but it was still really phenomenal. If you are into the J. Cole stuff that has been released on the radio, highly, highly recommend you check out some of his earlier mixtapes, such as Friday Night Lights. I understand it's going to be commercially released in the next year or so. I think you'd really enjoy it, Miguel.
Yeah, he's just a really solid artist.
I really don't care for J. Cole or Wale, so that's all there is to say about that.
Perfect. It's perfectly fine. You can have your own opinions.
Although I do agree with you that Friday Night Lights, I think, is a much better instance of J. Cole. I think Born Sinner...
I think so. I think so as well. But still, I gotta ride with J. Cole on this one. I really enjoyed kind of the top tier of songs, in my opinion, on Born Sinner. I think we're up to par with some of his earlier work. And on The Gifted, I really could have done without a lot of the songs, but there's 5 or 6 songs such as Love Hate Thing, like I talked about, Sunshine, which I didn't talk about, just really soulful rap tracks, and that's just kind of what I'm into. And if you don't like it, that's fine.
Yeah, great picks, Connor. And I guess I'll just go into mine right now. My two guilty pleasures of the year. Still great albums, but take them with a grain of salt. So for my first pick, I want to give a big shout out to Ariana Grande. You might have seen her in one of the Nickelodeon shows that are on right now. They're not that great, but her voice really is something else. And her debut album, Yours Truly, came out in the latter half of the year. Just brings in a lot of 90s R&B vibes. That's something that I really enjoy a lot, like from the likes of Mariah Carey, TLC, that type of music. And then she also brings in a lot of doo-wop style influences from the 1950s, the 1960s. And when you combine it with some of the trap production that she kind of brings, it really is quite a unique experiment, and it makes some really fun chemistry, some really great songs. The features that are here that kind of give her a more adult vibe, Mac Miller or Big Sean, really, just give a lot of variety to the album. Some of the songs are not that great. Some of the songs are still centered towards, maybe her, audience that she's going for, which is, people that are a bit younger than me. But a lot of the other songs just kind of bring it back to me. A lot of the music that I like, when you think about The Way or Right There, You'll Never Know, those types of songs and that type of chord progression that I really enjoy really made it for me. The second album that I want to talk about, really one of the most unique experiences that I've had listening to an album this year. I hated it when I first heard it. I didn't know what to do. But then I just kind of started going into the chord progressions more and the just colorful instrumentation and just how amazing it is that the producer and the artist, Kiari Pamyu, combined to create such a fun record and such a throwback, nostalgic. It really is something that appeals to me as part of, the Nintendo, Game Boy, GameCube generation. The album's called Nanda Collection, and it's, a hefty amount of tracks that are just focused on catchy bubblegum pop music that you can kind of associate with a lot of the J-pop scene right now, but she kind of stands a league on her own. She's kind of getting pretty popular in America. She's what you could call Tumblr famous. And, she's been making the rounds, and I really just enjoy a lot of, the lightheartedness that she brings to the entire J-pop genre and just, the whole video game style production that's kind of becoming a lot more popular now, especially in rap music as well. Tracks, they're called like Super Scooter Happy. You kind of expect what you're going for, Fashion Monster, that's what the song names are. And it's just a very unique listen, and I really recommend that you check it out. You might be thrown off at first, but make sure you give it a solid listen, and I think you'll be turned around. Well, I hope you enjoyed listening to our topics of the year. I'm Miguel Otarola.
I'm Brandon Kutzler.
And I'm Connor Johnson. Check us out in our weekly podcast on Grantland.
Wow.